Sunday, January 5, 2014, 2:28 a.m. I'm lying in bed next to a rasping Kylie, unable to sleep. I desperately wish I could tell someone about what has happened. Jim, perhaps? No, certainly not Brad. It would be too painful and unbelievable for Dad. I realize that I've never felt more alone. Even Bugsy has deserted me for the quiet of the chair in the bay window, annoyed by his humans tossing and turning. For a moment, I considered telling Kylie, but I realized that she would, almost certainly, have run straight to Mum, crying, "Your son has finally gone insane!" In any event, Kylie spent the entire evening ignoring me with quiet vitriol. Bugsy and I retreated into my study with some 2-minute noodles and a tin of tuna to share. There I made the mistake of checking the in-tray, only to find 2 new final demand notices and a bank balance that showed we had reached the limit of both our credit card and mortgage redraw potential. But obviously, on this particular night, the money problems aren't what's keeping me awake. Instead, I keep thinking of the strange events of the day. In particular, I remember my uncle's words, "Dan, you have a chance to break the status quo." Status quo. It was a term Frank had often used. I remember an occasion more than 15 years before, when, while walking together in the centre of Perth, Frank had taken an unexpected detour into a dark alleyway. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Just breaking the status quo, Dan." "What do you mean?" "Have you heard of chaos theory?" "No." "You will. It postulates that the smallest thing we do has a flow-on effect. For example, some people say that a butterfly flapping its wings in China might ultimately result in a tornado in the American Midwest. Now, I believe that we, most of us anyway, live our lives following the same dreary routine. We avoid the unexpected. So, sometimes, I like to mix things up, trick fate. I do something completely out of the ordinary, like the left-hand turn we just made. Where will it take us? I don't know. Maybe just to the end of the alley and back. But I know that there must be a consequence somewhere, somehow. But what if the consequence is bad? Well, sometimes that's a risk you have to take. Like when you're playing poker and the hand you are dealt stinks to high heaven. You can always throw it in for a new one. So does this mean that you don't like the cards you're holding right now? Wise guy. Now that you mention it, I'm not particularly happy. I'm in a bit of a rut. Things aren't working out between me and a particular lady, and I'm not sure what to do. Why don't you just leave her? Ah, but what if I can get fate to change the status quo? Then she might leave me instead. That would save me the bother. Get it? Sounds a bit long-winded. One day you'll understand. I remember how the alleyway led us to a rancid car park where bins overflowed with garbage and flies. Frank had refused to backtrack, saying, "Let's go with the flow, nephew." Eventually, we found ourselves jostling our way through the back entrance of a sweaty, crowded restaurant kitchen, where Frank managed to knock over a high stack of plates, slicing open the back of his left hand in a shower of broken ceramic. I remember how Frank stoically ignored the cut until I casually ventured, "So, how do you like your new hand?" "Shut up and give your handkerchief." As I lie in bed, I wonder whether you can ever trick fate, whether you can do something truly spontaneous. Or does life follow a preordained path? Were Frank and I destined to go down that alleyway? How do you know if your choices change the status quo or just reflect it? There is, I realize, only one way to find out. I begin to ease my way out of the bed, causing Kylie to groan, roll over, and slap my back with a dead arm. I wait until I hear her snoring again before slipping out of the covers, grabbing my clothes, and tiptoeing to the door. Bugsy gets up and follows me, his tail swishing. Outside, I savor the cool, crisp air of the early morning, the faint tinge of moisture left by the sea breeze and the dew. Bugsy walks between my legs as I unlock the door to the Corolla, and I pick him up. "Feel like going for a ride, Bugster?" The cat opens his mouth in a silent meow, and we touch noses. Then I put him in the front passenger seat. Unlike most cats I've seen, Bugsy, is a good car traveler.